Yeah, so like you, I'm from Canada. I was actually,
Hello and welcome to Entrepreneur TV. I am your co-host, Velma Gallant. Super excited to have you here today. We have a very interesting guest to share with you. Today's topic is how to position yourself as an expert in any industry. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking about this. Our guest today is Nathan Segal. I hope I said it right. Has been
Segal,
working
actually.
Segal, okay. The
I
actor
meant
that
to
had me
tell you,
do that.
sorry.
So Nathan has been working as a writer for 25 years, and in that time has been published over 1,000 times in magazines all over the world. He was associate editor for WebRefrence for 5 years and managed a team of writers from all over the world. His biggest project was the Corel PHOTO-PAINT X4 Insider, a software manual which sold over 11,000 copies as part of a joint venture. Now, today, Nathan's creative talents have moved from writing to art, including traditional painting techniques, photographic illustration, and 3D printing. We are going to be talking about the writer aspect. We're going to be picking his brain as he's transitioning into the new direction that he's going. So, welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thank you.
So, you've been published in a lot of different magazines and done a lot of things in the writing arena. How did you end up becoming a writer?
I got fired from a job as a software instructor. I had moved to a brand new city. I'd actually been warned by a bunch of friends not to take on a job with this guy, that he was not a good person, but I was desperate to get out of Vancouver. And when this thing came up for Victoria, I grabbed it. But unfortunately, me and my new boss did not see eye to eye. And he made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, and 7 weeks after I got there, I was fired. So I was in a brand new city, had nothing to do, couldn't go back to where I was. And after about 2 weeks, my cousin Marty came over one day and he said, "Do you want to learn how to write?" Now, he'd given me that offer 6 months before, and I turned him down because I figured I'd be buried under a pile of paper. And as it turns out, I was right, but I had no prospects at all. And I said yes. And that's how I got started.
Wow, that's kind of, it is quite inspiring actually in the way that sometimes stuff happens that ends up kind of freaking us out and puts us in a bit of a pickle, no doubt. And it's just like, well, here's where I am and I got to roll with it. And it sounds like you rolled pretty well into that. How did that kind of pan out for you? What did you learn with starting to write?
Well, I mean, God, that's a complicated answer. Um, well, the major thing that comes to mind is the one thing I've discovered in my travels as a writer is that so many writers or potential writers have so many hangups to do with getting started. And when this happened, I didn't have any hangups at all, like zero. My cousin gave me all these things to do, and I just did them, and I got results. And within my first year, I was at five figures, which is not anything exciting, but I was at five figures and getting published. I just did what he told me to do. I didn't
Mm.
buck him. I didn't fight him. I didn't think I was smarter than he was. I just did what he told me to do. Now, I remember one point he took me to a shelf in his apartment office. And since like I knew what I wanted at writing, to backtrack, he gave me an exercise called a mind map and to look at like six different areas of where I could write. But I was only interested in two areas: photography and computer graphics. I was really narrow, really focused. And at one point, he took me into the living room and he showed me this shelf full of software. And he said, if you follow my instructions, you can do as well as me or better. And I remember thinking that he was full of it, but I kept my mouth shut. Fast forward 5 years, I was in the middle of a relationship breakup, and that was back in the days when people were still shipping software, by mail and whatever else before the digital downloads that we get now. And I went downstairs into the basement, and because I had to break apart all these boxes full of software and CD-ROMs and throw everything out in the manuals and everything. And when I looked at it, I realized I had the equivalent of 10 liquor store boxes full of software. And that's when my jaw hit the floor and I realized that I'd gone light years beyond what my cousin had told me with his mentoring and at one point he told me, and I forget when, that I was his number one protege. But like I said, I had no resistance. I just
Mm.
did what he told me to do and it worked.
Okay, there's a lot of juicy stuff in there. I love how you shared that you had no resistance, and we
The
talk a lot
resistance
about.
came later. It came later. Well,
Okay.
it did through different problems that happened, but at that time, no, there was no resistance. I did what he told me to do, and that was it.
Well, and it sounds like no resistance laid a really strong foundation for everything. I also found it quite interesting when you were talking about, he asked you to mind map 6 areas you could write about, and the two
Yeah.
you picked
Well,
are
I
very
knew
well connected to what you've actually transitioned to with your art.
well, the thing is, it's really not that much of a transition. It may sound like it to your audience, but the truth is, all the way through my writing career, I was writing about photography and computer graphics and art and all of that. So it's really not that much of a transition, except that I'm moving away from the writing and into the place of working as a full-time commercial artist. And speaking of publishing, like part of what I learned to do was publish books. And I actually did publish one. When did it go live? I think it went live on Saturday or Sunday on the Kindle at Amazon Kindle. But this time around, it was completely different from anything else I've done because it was an adult coloring book. And
Okay.
and before any of your listeners get the wrong idea, we're not talking about X-rated stuff. It was an adult coloring book of butterflies.
Mm.
And the feedback I got from my audience was really good. One of my friends told me, you need to learn this and start teaching. You've got all this skill as an artist, and but I dragged my butt for about 6 months, and then the butterflies thing came about when I was just searching my hard drive because I was thinking about butterflies again, and I had this project that went kablooey about 4 years ago, and I looked at my old images and realized, these really aren't very good. And then I looked for a tutorial, found one online, and I started following it. And then I opened up Canva, signed up for an account, and within 3 days, I had a completed coloring book using the Canva AI, which is so. But there are other, like Canva has upgraded and it has like 7 or 9 different AI tools in there. And one of them gives you all these things that you can do with AI. And there's another one that was in there that I discovered, and it's just like, love this. And so I my next direction is but AI, but I've got people wanting me to write a course. So I'm not out of publishing in any way, and that I'm just going in a different direction with it and using
Hmm.
all of the skill that I learned from writing for publishing, but just different now.
I love that. And it really does point to, the subject of today's show, how to position yourself as an expert in any industry. Because what I'm hearing is that through the learning that you did with writing, you're actually positioning yourself to be an expert, to be teaching about art, and maybe even the combination of art and publishing. There's
And
actually so
AI
many.
and
And
AI.
AI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I avoided it for like 6 or maybe 8 months because I'm a real purist and I thought the AI would screw things up, but actually, no. What I've seen with the AI is that AI will only go so far, but then you have to tweak it.
Mhm.
and you have to learn how to use it. Like one of the things I encountered yesterday was, and I realized when I get a little bit more cash, and I'm going to sign up for a thing, but they were talking about training the AI. Well, that's an entirely different matter than just going into AI and saying, I want a picture of a dog in front of a house. You have to literally go in and train it and tweak it and show it what you want it to do. And then, but even then, like, and perhaps later I can show you a thing that I did where I created this AI image. I think it was in Leonardo or Canva. I forget which program I used, but the result I got was not what I wanted. And so I took the image into a free image editor called PHOTO-PAINT, and I took that, put it on a layer, used a technique called the color range command, which comes from Photoshop. And by doing that, I managed to strip out a lot of the grayscale and these shadings and so on, and to produce a solid black and white image, which is what I wanted. Because in the coloring book world, some of the criticisms I read were of images that were not solidly black and white, like just lines. They would have
Mhm.
fills, they would have grayscale, and a lot of users were really annoyed with that. Me too. But I couldn't make it work in Canva. And then I discovered something in another tool where I came close to what I was wanting, just lines or very few filled in areas, mostly lines. And then, but also the realization, oh, wait a second, I need to use my image editing skills. So I took that eagle head as a perfect example, brought it into Photopea, put it on a layer, and stripped out all of the shaded areas. So I got a solid black and white thing. It wasn't perfect the way I wanted, but about 95% of what I wanted. And I could have fixed it a bit more. But
I like
it's
that.
yeah, super important, really.
Well,
And for the,
and I think we can take that in a lot of different directions with respect to AI,
sure,
because what
whatever you
I'm
like.
hearing is um, AI will give you good. You still need to use your own creativity to turn that into great.
Yeah, and in my case, it's more than creativity. It's actual knowledge of how to use the tools. Like because of computer graphics, like I taught myself how to use the bulk of what I use.
Mhm.
I took some training for some of it. Um, but I also taught myself how to be a photographer. So I understand light and shadow and form and studio setups and all of that. And I also went to art school for 3 years and I learned how to see as an artist. So, like an argument that I've had many, many times with people who talk about AI, one guy in particular who harassed me for months before I finally blocked him was saying, oh, the AI will replace you as an artist. I'm going, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And he would show me stuff and I'd look at it and go, do you know what's wrong with it? He goes, it's perfect. I said, no, it's not. And we kept having all these fights. And I said, look, man, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a trained artist. You will fool your buddies and anybody who doesn't understand this stuff, but you will not fool a trained professional and you will not fool an art director and you won't fool anybody else who knows how to see. They're going to make mincemeat out of you. He wouldn't listen to me and finally said, I'm done. I'm blocking you. You don't know what you're talking about and you're just wasting your time and mine. You need to know this stuff. Like I said, and it's become a quote of mine, if you use AI and you don't know how to see, as an artist, you will create a lot of slick looking bad computer art. That didn't fly well with a lot of people who tried to put me in my place. But the truth is that that is it. AI is not a substitute for knowing how to see. It's not a substitute for understanding composition or design or any of that, because if you don't understand it, you're going to create stuff that looks kind of cool, but in a professional sense, you're going to bomb. Like it
Mhm.
or not, to your listeners or viewers, you got to take training. And I found that out the hard way. Like I had a friend years ago who told me because I was not getting the results I wanted, he said, you need to go to school and learn how to see as an artist. Now, I was in another one of my arrogant phases and I thought he was full of it. And, but years later, when I went to art school, and I actually did learn how to see, I realized that I was the one who was arrogant and he knew what he was talking about. And years later, I went back to him and I told him that story and I said, "You were right in every way, and I was wrong."
Hmm.
And
I
yeah,
really appreciate what you're sharing here. A lot of the people inside of this community know that my son is a music artist, and he's actually taken a step back from the industry mainly because AI is out there. People are using AI to create music, and I'm hearing a lot of what you're saying in what he has said, in that it's okay, it'll create okay, but it'll never replace a real musician because it's missing this, it's missing that. So he, from his perspective, is he learned how to hear, and those people who are using it for music don't know how to hear when it comes to those music. So I'm really seeing and hearing what you're sharing inside of that. And I can see how that will impact a lot of people when it comes to using AI. Don't count on it. Still understand what it is you're doing. AI as a tool.
yeah, it's a good tool. It's very valuable in terms of creating the coloring book. It worked, but there were a lot of things I couldn't do, and it didn't matter how many times I told the software what I wanted, it wouldn't give it to me, like 95% of the time. And then I learned a few days later about training the software. Um, and I realized, that's part of what I'm going to have to do. But the other part of it, depending on what the AI creates, I'm going to have to take it into a program like Photopea or Photoshop or Corel Draw or whatever, PhotoPaint, and retouch it because the AI will get me mostly to where I want to go, but not all the way. And I have to fix it. And there's
Mhm.
simply no other choice. I mean, I encountered that again yesterday when a woman wanted me to do some stuff and I could not get the AI to do it to save my life. And then it suddenly dawned on me that the way that I'm going to have to do this is in two stages. I'm going to have to use the AI to create the background as best I can. Then I'm going to have to retouch it, which I did have to do in Canva. And then in terms of the text that you wanted me to do, that I was going to have to do it as a separate layer over top of the illustration because I could not get it to work any other way.
Mhm.
Simply wouldn't work. And I realized that I'm too advanced for the AI. What I'm asking it to do is beyond it's not beyond the capabilities of the software. It's just that the software has not been trained. It hasn't been set up in such a way that you can do what you want. And when I watched this video about the training, like, and this for a program called Leonardo, I believe. So I'm going to have to buy a membership to it. And then once I get that, I'm going to have to go in there and train it to do the types of images that I want it to do. So those images then become a preset so that when I tell the software what to do down the road, it will give me what I really want or come a
Mhm.
lot closer than it is currently.
So how
If that
did
makes any sense.
your training in writing, if how did that support you in being an expert in what you're doing with your art?
Well, it exposed me to an awful lot of programs. Um, like one of the really great things about doing what I was doing is my Marty, my cousin, taught me a technique of getting software so I could write reviews and tutorials. Like up until a short time ago, I had a great relationship with Adobe for 25 years until they changed their masthead, and now I can no longer get access to the software that I used to use for decades. Um, but the thing about the writing is it taught me a technique of asking for and receiving software at no charge. And so as a result of what I learned, I got access to the highest end programs and computer graphics that you can get, programs that cost as much as $7,000, and I paid this much for it. And I had and I still have access to some of that, like 3ds Max, which is when they were selling it as a program just by itself without a subscription, $4,000 per prescription. Mine is $7,000. And just all I had to do is to pick up a phone and say, I'm doing this. Can I get this? And I say, sure, here you go. I've done that hundreds of times over the years. And so
Interesting.
it gave me access to all of this stuff that I could use. So I literally wrote probably 300 or 400 software reviews and maybe 700 to 800 software tutorials, like how to use this stuff. So as a writer, I got access to all sorts of great tools, and I got to play, and I got to teach myself. I got to learn all this stuff, and I got to incorporate it into my art. And ironically, like not that long ago, I got hired to work with a guy to do some documentation for some programs. But I said to him, and we've become good friends. This guy is my boss, my former boss. I said, there's only one problem with what you've done here. I'm the wrong guy, and you're going to have to fire me. I can't do what you really want me to do. And after a while, he realized that I was telling him the truth, and he did fire me. But we are good friends regardless. But he told me about, like, I wanted to do a technique. And in order to show your users what I'm talking about, I'm going to have to turn my background off, which means it's going to look rather scuzzy. But let me just see for a second. How do I do this? Give me a second here. Where am I? I should be able to see how to do this, but
Just change
oh well,
Zoom
I
on
don't seem
this.
to be able to do it right now. Yeah, not able to figure out in this moment what I wanted to do, but anyway, yeah, oh well. But I wanted to learn a technique of, I can try and hold this up. I don't think it's going to work because of my screen. It will probably jump in and out. I don't know if you
It,
can see it.
it showed while it was over your shirt. So pull it down and closer to you, and I think we can see it. Oh, almost. It popped in there for a second, a little bit closer to you, and there we go. Oh, that looked kind of cool. It popped out, but I did get a good glimpse at it.
Okay. So what it is, it's a sculpture, a metal sculpture of the three phases of either the sun or the moon. I'm still not sure which one it is, but I think it's the moon. But the point of showing your audiences is that in 3D, like one of the things that I'd really wanted to do in my art journey and never got to was sculpting. And like years before, I had done some sculpting, but using foam and sculpting it, well, with a knife and sculpting foam with something called, oh, geez, I don't remember the exact words, but it was a special frame that I made with something called nichrome wire, which is the same wire that you will find inside of your toaster. Okay.
Okay.
And nichrome wire, like it was set on these two supports, and one had an elastic at the end so that it would keep the thing tight. So it looked like a bow, if you will. So one end was solid, the other end was flexible. Then I had a thing of this nichrome wire in the center. And nichrome wire, when it gets hot, it expands and droops. So this thing would pull it tight, and then I could use it for carving sheets of foam for making wings for aircraft, which is what I was using it for at the time. But you could use it on a smaller scale for different tools, and it just carves this foam. It just goes through it like butter, right? So I thought about getting into that again, but I thought, no, I want more control. So there are two programs for doing this. One is 3ds Max, which is what I have. And the other one is a free program called Blender, open source. And my boss told me, you need to check out Blender. Well, I did some research and I found out, and it turns out that he was right, is that Blender is one of the best programs for doing it. There's another one out there called ZBrush, which is totally dedicated to sculpting. But Blender is a very powerful program. It's open source and it's free. And
Wow.
so I
Okay.
got Blender. And so like, yeah, there's so many bits and pieces to do with the writing. Like if you're into computer graphics, one of the things you'll probably get involved with sooner or later is needing to get what they call a drawing tablet. And the best ones, and I don't know if I can show your viewers again. It's probably going to muck up my screen. I'm going to see if I can make this work. Oh, crap. In case my cable long enough. But I got the same problem of it flashing in and out of the screen. But this is what they call a drawing tablet. The very best ones that you can buy, and I found this out by doing research, but the very best ones that you can buy are made by a company called Wacom. And this Wacom, W-A-C-O-M.
Okay.
So this one that I have here is a 6x9 tablet by Wacom, and it's fabulous for pressure sensitive drawing. Because if you're trying to draw computer graphics, or if you're trying to paint and you're trying to use one of these suckers, it's like trying to paint with a baseball bat. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like I did this one model in Blender before I got the drawing tablet, and it was so hard, like really hard. I mean, I got it to work for the most part, but it was really hard. And the only way to do the job properly is to get a drawing tablet. So I don't know if we're going too far afield here, but this is all part of the journey of writing and computer graphics and photography, which is what I was into and still am into.
It's been quite interesting because when people think about a writer, I mean, the mind goes straight to books, right? Writing a book.
Sure.
Um, and that is absolutely one aspect of it. What I think you've opened up here in the possibilities is because you said that, you were doing writing reviews and tutorials and what that gave you access to. So what I'm hearing is there's a lot broader opportunity with writing than just writing a book.
Oh, yeah. Well, my cousin used to say that writing is like a passport. And he was absolutely
Mm.
right. It opens up so many doors. Like, I mean, in terms of the computer graphics and photography, um, it gave me access to worlds and experiences that I could never have imagined. And it's like when I was in art school, I was the only student in the entire school making money from my art while I was still in school. And one of my classmates, we had a scrap one day, and he said, "You sold out." And I said, "How? I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what I really enjoy, and I'm getting paid for it. So how is that a sellout?" And I gave him royal crap over it. We had one very big fight. But afterwards, what happened is I discovered that he was doing several of the things that I told him about. And he realized that I had obviously not sold out because I was doing what I wanted. And
Mhm.
I was getting paid for it. And like one of the pieces of art that I did, well, a lot of the art, like the Corel PHOTO-PAINT Insider, that was full of my art and my photography. And it sold over 11,000 times. And, how am I selling out? I get to do what I love and get paid for it. Isn't that what it's about? A part of it, at least.
So when you did, so because that Corel Photo Paint
Yeah,
Insider is an excellent example of what we're talking about broadening our horizons and our ideas of what to do with writing.
yeah,
So that is a program that you wrote the tutorials for. You basically wrote the software manual for. You got
yeah.
the software in order to write the manual. So did you basically self-teach yourself that program in order to write that manual?
You're starting to see through me, aren't you? Yeah, absolutely, yes. I mean, the program did come with instructions, but I went beyond it. And I put my own personal spin on it. And in addition to the book, I created 2 hours worth of video tutorials as well. And those are all on my YouTube account right now, if somebody were to look. And some of the videos got quite a few reviews, like, or views, 50,000, 100,000, whatever it was, people looking at my stuff and commenting on it, and how do you do this? How do you do that? But, um, you know, in terms of being a writer, the other aspect is video tutorials as well.
Mhm.
And video tutorials, like, it makes it easier for a lot of users who don't learn well by reading print. Video, you can just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and until you get it, until you nail it. And once you've nailed it, that's it. And you can always go back in case you forget something. It's always there for you.
Well, and it sounds to me like what you did was actually created. So if you've got the videos, you've got the book, you've actually created a lot of different ways for people to access the same information. So yeah, you wrote the book, you also wrote the videos and everything like that, and created excellent opportunities for
Yeah.
people to be able to access it, which is why Corel partnered with you on that and said, yeah, okay, do it.
Yeah, it worked out fairly well that way. I mean, in terms like the coloring book, like the project that went kablooey a number of years ago, I actually did a video about it, 35 minutes long, about how to use Photoshop to create these images. And I shared it with my audience just a few days ago. And some of that information may still be valid, because when
Mhm.
you look at the AI, like I said earlier, AI can do a lot, but it's not perfect. And it's not going to give you everything unless you can train the model really down to a fine detail. I don't know if I can. I would imagine at some point you will be able to, but I don't think completely, because like there are certain things about art. It's like software will only take you so far. It will only, but you need to know how to use it. You need to know how to do these things. And if you don't know how to do those things, you're going to get stuck like I was. But then when I got stuck, I thought, wait a second. And that's when I stumbled on this thing about training. And it's like, oh, that's right. I've heard about this and I forgot.
Mhm.
And so there are all these things. And so got all these friends asking me, like, when are you going to do this? The other thing, like with your audience, that might be really useful. And I'm going to have to go to my sources on this. Like when it comes to publishing courses, there is a platform out there called the Great Discovery. And I'm going to have to look for my links to it. But the Great Discovery is a platform for publishing courses. But not only that, it is a platform where they can take whatever you've done and share it in like 200, I think, different languages. Plus, it's also a platform that's got an MLM component attached to it. So lots of different ways of making money with it. So
Interesting.
yeah. So in terms of the people in your audience who might want to create courses, I got to get you the link on that, because it potentially could open the doors for quite a few of your viewers. I think they could use
Awesome.
it. Yeah.
So we are at the end of our time. I think I want to thank you, Nathan, because what I believe people are going to get from this, and what I got from this, is that um, there are many creative ways to achieve things. And if we're open and curious about it, there's different ways to get things done. And maybe sometimes even better ways to get things done. Certainly we've transitioned from writing into art and back again into writing. We've talked about publishing, and we've talked about how AI is a fantastic tool when we train it well, and understanding that it is a tool. It still needs our human component, and we don't want to stop learning, just like we don't want to stop training the AI when we're using that tool.
No. Yeah,
So
the AI
that's
is vast. I only really got into this maybe a couple of weeks ago. I'm part of a group that meets every Tuesday night to talk about AI. And from what I can see in the group, I'm one of the only people who's actually doing anything to any major degree. And but from what I've seen, it's really exploded my world in a lot of really great ways. And there are a ton of AI tools out there. And one of the guys in the group, his name is James Feldman. He's saying, if anybody says they're an AI expert, they're full of it, because no one can be an AI expert. he said the growth of the tools and the opportunities, it's exponentially growing. And if you're a creative person like myself, the opportunity is absolutely incredible. And if you're
Absolutely.
not into it, like, better jump in sooner than later.
I really like that because it actually pulled me back to when we first got started, where you were talking about writing. You just did it and got results. And it sounds like that's what you're still doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, every now and then I get lucky. And when I did the Canva book, I got lucky like almost right away. But then later, some of the stuff I was doing, I was not getting lucky and I was getting really frustrated. But then I started trying a whole bunch of editors out. And on my Facebook timeline, I had one guy write to me the other day and he gave me access to a program, forget what it's called, but it's basically an aggregator and it's got a whole bunch of different AI programs built into it, like Leonardo and Midjourney and some others. And so you get to play with these things to learn how they work, but there's so much that one needs to learn if you want to use this stuff. And it's just like, it'll make your head spin. It really will. But once you start getting the hang of it and you start getting some really cool results, like I got all these friends ask me about teaching. I'm going, oh my God, like where do I begin with this? But I also have to talk about what I know, courtesy of my writing career and all those programs I learned. I need to teach people, okay, let's say you get this, but you're not getting the result that you want. How do you tweak it? How do you fix it to get what you really want? Can
Mhm.
you do it, or do you have to start over in another way? And
Right.
so there's all this experimenting that has to go on. Like this, I had this one thing where a guy asked me to do a prompt of Trump throwing plates of ketchup against the wall after watching the latest DNC thing. And I was using this program to do it, and it wouldn't work. It would not give me what I asked for, no matter how many times I asked for it.
Hmm.
It gave me part of it, but not all of it. And the guy was really disappointed. And I said, I'm sorry, it's the program. I can't do anything with it. It won't follow my instructions. It gets me like maybe 50%.
Hmm.
I can't give you the whole enchilada. I'm sorry. And that's
Hey,
it.
well, we do need to close this down. For those of you who are in the community, Nathan is in our community, so you are absolutely welcome to connect with him there. I know he's on Instagram because I followed him there, and he's shared with us that he also has a YouTube channel. I'm thinking, Nathan, would you mind posting that picture that we tried to share here in the comments of this video
Uh,
inside of the group, if that's possible?
which
Because I think that would be
which
cool. The 3D, the three phases
Oh, sure. Yeah,
picture.
I've got it on my hard drive. I'll find it and
Yeah,
send it to you.
yeah, if that would be fantastic.
Post it in the
Yeah,
group, you mean?
post it in the
Okay,
group in the comments for this video. That would be fantastic. So
sure.
thank
I
you
can do that.
so much. Thank you so much for your time. This was very fascinating, and I know I got a lot of great information out of it.
Oh, happy to be here.
And for
Mm,
those of you out in YouTube land, come on over to Heartpreneurs with Terry Levine, our Facebook group. You will connect with other heart-based business owners like myself, like Terry, and like Nathan. We'd love to have you. Thanks, everyone, and have a fantastic day.